Dr. P.R.G. Mathur, an eminent Indian anthropologist, was born on 12th October 1934 in Mathur, a village in Palakkad district in Kerala. Dr. Mathur is known as an anthropologist with a lot of visions. His interests spread across social and cultural anthropology, maritime anthropology, applied anthropology, development anthropology, and ecological anthropology. Mathur took his PhD in anthropology in 1973 from Calcutta University under the guidance of Professor Surajit Singha, a world-renowned anthropologist and former Vice-Chancellor of Vishwabharati University, Shantiniketan. Dr. Mathur approached Ayyappan for doing PhD under him. Mathur remembers his meeting with Professor A. Ayyappan.
Professor Ayyappan, the world-renowned anthropologist, was known to me for a long time. I used to meet him when he was the professor and of the department at University. Even I approached him whether he could take me as a PhD student. But somehow or other he told me that his hands are full, so you can try elsewhere. When I was very young, I was wondering whether I could do PhD, so I approached him. But then he was telling me that without a fellowship, it will be very difficult for you to come and stay at Utkal University. Then I didn't want to take leave, and then finally I went to Kannur University, where I met Dr. Ishran. There also I couldn't get. Then Gopalasaran was there. He has agreed, but I could not continue there. I came finally to Ayyappan again. He says, why don't you go to Surajit, So he only advised me to Surajit. Since I was in the Anthropology of India, I requested Surajit Sinha to take me as a PhD student.
Later, Mathur did his PhD under Professor Surajit Singha, a student of eminent American anthropologist Robert Redfield.
Finally, I succeeded in meeting Dr. Surajit Sinha. At that time, he was the joint director of Anthropology of India. Finally, he became the director of Anthropology of India. He was kind enough to take me as his PhD student.
Dr. Mathur had worked in various capacities in the Anthropological Survey of India, Calcutta, from 1959 to 1973. In 1973, he joined as the Special Officer of the Tribal Research and Training Center at Calicut under the Government of Kerala. Professor Dr. A. Ayyappan was the first Special Officer of Tribal Research and Training Center, Calicut. When Professor A. Ayyappan became the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Kerala, Dr. P.R.G. Mathur became the Special Officer of Tribal Research and Training Center.
Then after he became Vice-Chancellor, he was there for 2 years, if I remember. Then he became the head of the Tribal Research and Training Center, where I succeeded to him in Calicut government. But at that time, he was telling me he never had any power to do anything. Finally, he was forced to leave the institute, and the Tribal Research Institute, the former Tribal Research Training Center, was left without anybody for 2 years. Then I was invited by the government to take up to head the Tribal Research Institute. In 1973, I joined. Then often I meet him to discuss how to streamline the institute. Then, all these things are there. After 1973 to 79, I worked for reorganized the institute as a separate department. 79, Tribal Research Institute was converted to Kerala Institute for Research, Training, Development Studies of SC/ST, extending the what we call activities to scheduled caste also. Now it is known as a Kurtas, as a separate department, where the Government of India recommended to upgrade the status of head of the institute as a professor and head of the department in the status of university professor, where I continued for more than 10 years.
The former Tribal Research Center was reorganized in 1979 as a separate department called P.R.G. P.R.G. is the short form of Kerala Institute for Research, Training and Development Studies of Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes. In 1979, he was appointed as the director of P.R.G. and continued after 1987.
It was Ayyappan's contribution. Probably he was not given an opportunity to work in government. But anyway, that was a blessing disguise for me also. I used to meet him often about the activities of the institute and also how to develop as a separate department. Somehow or other we were able to manage to convert as a separate department.
The introduction of classification of community studies at the Kirtads for the first time in India in 1976 to protect and defend the constitutional safeguards of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and other backward classes has become one of his significant contributions.
And in government as well as in Kirtas, there is a separate session dealing with the classification of community studies. Today, under the Act 11 of Government of India Act, and also after Madhuri Patel case, a new scrutiny committee was appointed, and every state, but in Kerala it is very successfully done. In these scrutiny committees headed by CST Secretary and head of the department of what you call tribal welfare, and also a department, SCST development department. These three-member committee with the Kirtas director of the scrutiny committee is doing it.
Applied anthropology started to grow in new directions with the research and studies started in Kirtads.
But in the field of applied anthropology, we could do a lot of things in the newly created department of Kirtads. Today, if anybody wants to change a spelling of a community, it is only after department anthropology study. This is not anywhere in India. It is not done. That's the thing, sir. So when there was no anthropology in Kerala, it was a recognized center for anthropology studies by the University of Calicut. Some of my students did PhD when there was no anthropology.
During 1973 to 1987, Dr. Mathur guided PhD students in anthropology at the University of Calicut.
Then I worked for the opening of anthropology department at Calicut University from 74 to 86. I used to take many professors from India to the university and convince them the necessity for opening a department. Thank God, the 1986 it was opened, started at Palayad, what do you call it? Palayad. And Murkoti Ravani was very much interested in taking the Department of Anthropology there, and he has succeeded, and he was a eminent, himself is a self-made anthropologist, although he is an administrator. That was how the Palayad, what you call today, the Department of Anthropology is functioning at that time for Calicut University. Now it was merged with Kannur University. So Ayyappan did a lot of things, but he has inspired me to see anthropology is really opened in Calicut University. That's things have happened. So that is what his inspiration made me to work for the opening of the Department of Anthropology. Today, we have been able to succeed in a larger extent to prevent the what we call infiltration forward community into the fold of scheduled, and also to restore the benefits to communities who have been denied the benefits. This has been done, and only in Kerala applied anthropology has been successful. This is what Ayyappan thought, how to make use of the anthropology knowledge for the welfare of the man. That's what we have done it.
Dr. P.R.G. Mathur has strong disagreement towards some of the professors of Indian universities.
But what is happening in Indian university, once they become professors, very seldom they go to the field, and they depend upon the data collected by PhD students, and they make use of the data for their writing. That is not good. I would plead to all the professors not to use the their students' data for writing. And see, I am of opinion, unless and until I go to the field and collect material, I won't write anything. My basic writing is based on my own field work. If people can do all these things, well and good. I am 76, I do field work even. I am currently engaged in studying the sacred complex of Shabarimala temple. I go to Shabarimala every month and observe all the rituals and ceremonies conducted in Shabarimala. Data collected by somebody Data collected by the author himself is entirely different. That's why even now I always go to the field, and on the basis of field work only I write it. I don't want to write something on the basis of data collected by my assistants or junior officers. Because after all, you must have control over the what you call field. You must have control of the subject which you are studying it.
Dr. Mathur emphasizes on the role of anthropology and anthropologists in the formulation of development programs.
For what you call the knowledge of the human society should be used for the development of man. And we have not been able to convince the central and state government our knowledge should be used for the formulation of plan and program. Tell me how many anthropologists are being consulted at the state level, even central level, even for a planning commission in Delhi, 1 or 2 people also at the top. Otherwise, because after all we have to formulate a program for the people according to the cultural heritage of that community. But we don't do it like that. Even now either tribal development department or scheduled caste department, they formulate a program according to a stipulated guidelines given by the government of India. Anthropology should work, and we are to be able for that. Because we have to now also see to what extent a multi-disciplinary approach should be adapted by anthropologists. Those days have changed. In olden times we used to work on the tribes. Now the complex society we have been working on that different community. You see, in my case, I worked among the tribes, I worked among the special folk, I have come back to even the sacred complex of our Indian civilization.
Dr. Mathur studied the sacred complex of the Guruvayur temple in 2009. Guruvayur is the most well-endowed, most publicized and most crowded temple complex.
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krivasagaram, Krishna Krivasagaram.
Dr. Mathur studied ecology, technology and economy, continuity and change among the fisher folk of Kerala. Dr. Mathur has worked as the Director of Anthropology in the Ananthakrishna Iyer International Center for Anthropological Studies during 2003 to 2007.
Remember, Anthropology is the father of anthropology. If you want anything, a court case or anything, the judiciary also even now refer Anthropology Iyer, Thurston and also Ayyappan. But what happened? What the state or central government did for this? Nothing. So in early 70s, 79, I thought something must be done in the name of...
He is also the founder member, the Anthropological Advisor, an executive member of the Ananthakrishna Iyer International Center for Anthropological Studies, Palakkad, since 1979 to 1992.
We have celebrated the Silver Jubilee recently at Palakkad and here. Not because he happened to be a Brahmin. A Brahmin at those days, he used to go to the field in Kalavandi, bullock cart. He was patronized by the Cochin Raja, and he brought out the 3 volume caste and tribes of Cochin in 3 volumes, and he also did Syrian Christian, good work Syrian Christian. Then he was responsible for bringing out several volumes of Mysore caste and tribes. Can a single man do it? And he was invited to become the first head of the department he was invited by Sir Ashtosh Mukherjee in Calcutta, and he was the first department head without formal education in anthropology. What else you can do? So Dr. Ayyappan, on the other hand, he was the first anthropologist to have a formal education in anthropology, that also in the London School of Economics. So like that, very rare species, Iyer and Ayyappan.
Dr. Mathur was the secretary of the Ananthakrishna Iyer International Center for Anthropological Studies during 1993 to 2002.
So all the problems, when an anthropologist working in a university, they can write to government and convince government you have to do this. I am asking a question. How many of us can study ethnomedicine without collaboration with botanists? Tell me. Many people wrote ethnomedicine. How many people have really borrowed or sought help from the botanists? Nobody's. And if you want a full-fledged study, similarly, a botanist cannot study holistically what you call the tribal medicine. You understand it? So wherever there is a possibility, we should borrow from history, we should borrow from botany. There must be a multidisciplinary approach without sacrificing our own science. This is what I mean. We borrow from anything, sir. We have to borrow the techniques of what you call botanists, we have to borrow the economists, we have to borrow even what you call the technologists. These things are. So anthropology is a science of man. You cannot use only the traditional methodology, these things. Otherwise we do what you call genealogical method and also participant observation and also interview method. What else you can do it? Multidisciplinary approach, we have to do it. Wherever possible, we should have a cooperation, coordination and multidisciplinary approach is a current to study current issue.
Dr. Mathur have worked as consultant anthropologist for the National Commission for Backward Classes, chaired by an ex-Chief Justice of India, on the study of the Muslim communities of Kerala and Karnataka states during 1996 to 1998. In 2007, Dr. Mathur became the recipient of the first Ananthakrishna Iyer Memorial Award constituted by the Anthropological Association, Mysore, in recognizing his overall contributions in anthropology during the past 5 decades. In 1973 to 1987, Dr. Mathur taught applied anthropology, development and cultural diversities to the officials of different departments including revenue, police and forest for 15 years at the training wing of Department of P.R.G, a Center for Anthropological Studies. From 1982 to 1987, he conducted training programs on indigenous medicine for the tribal people. In 1982, he was honored with a Fulbright Fellowship in Anthropology. He visited several universities in USA and delivered lectures on applied anthropology and development administration in India. He also visited several universities in UK as part of Fulbright program. 1987 to 1989, Dr. Mathur has also worked as a special officer of P.R.G and Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Development Department of the Government of Kerala at the Secretariat in Trivandrum. In 1992, he became a visiting fellow in the International School of Dravidian Linguistics, Trivandrum.
That field anthropology, we want more field anthropology rather than armchair anthropology. Of course, he said to me, he told me, I was in the museum for a long time, but when I became the professor head of the department for organizing a separate department, I used to emphasize the field methodology very well. So that's what Ayyappan was, a field scientist.
Ayyappan was a very good field worker.
Naturally, quite. Otherwise, can you imagine 1930s? How could you do field work under Kerala?
Is it because of the influence of Professor Malinowski?
Well, naturally. Malinowski is because he was a student of Malinowski. So Malinowski was a good field worker. I am a follower of Malinowski. Even now, I always take the Malinowski's understanding the society. That things are.
During 2003 to 2007, he had served as the Vice Chairman of Center for Indigenous Knowledge, Science and Culture at Calicut. From 1994 to 1998, he had worked as consultant anthropologist for the Kerala State Commission for Backward Classes, chaired by a retired High Court Judge of Kerala. His major contributions to the anthropological literature are Tribal Situation in Kerala, the Mapila Fisher Folk of Kerala, the Khasi of Meghalaya, Applied Anthropology and Development Administration, Ecology, Technology and economy, continuity and change among the fisher folk of Kerala, sacred complex of the Guruvayur temple, sacred complex of Shabarimala Ayyappa, and many other monographs.
You must, when you have a subject like anthropology, it is a world science. It is a science of man. It is recognized at the international level. In Mysore, they teach anthropology in Kannada. Why do you want to teach them in Malayalam and Kannada? I would like to advise all young scholars, particularly social scientists and anthropologists, should imbibe Professor Ayyappan's the field methodology. He was a great field worker, and probably he must have borrowed the concept and technique from Malinowski. He is a guru. But our youngsters are today, I don't know how many youngsters after they become professors go to the field is a big question. But I feel youngsters should correct themselves and see they must spend their, at least whenever there is a time, they must go to the field. No age for field work. I don't want to say young or anybody else. No age for the field work. Only through hard work and through hard field work one can get recognized. And there should be a good quality of the work should be maintained. So that the university department has got a lot of freedom. Work on producing excellent students, give them good training in field methodology. This is what I could have said. And I think University, Kannur University, particularly Department of Anthropology, can become a center of excellence in due course. That's what I was telling to. We were all friends there. So there is no any limitation. Anthropologists should study the man and culture. That's the most important thing. So youngsters, irrespective of the age, they should continue to do field work. No age limitation for that. That's what my message.
Even in this old age, Dr. P.R.G. Mathur presents papers in national and international seminars and conferences.
Five community groups, up to 75 community groups in India. They are Cholanayakam of Nilambur, the Kurubas of Attapadi, Kada of Cochin.
He disseminates his anthropological knowledge throughout his life, and it is a message for the young generation of anthropologists.